I'm Brittany.
And I'm Tyler.
And this is
With You,
where we have honest conversations about how we're navigating faith,
marriage,
and parenthood
one crazy day at a time.
And welcome to our journey. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the With You podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about things you don't know to talk about before marriage. Some of these things, most of these are lighthearted and kind of silly, but actually legitimate things that you do need to talk about. They're just not quite as serious as some of the typical things that you would find in premarital counseling or some of the books you can find out there on all the questions to ask each other before marriage. But these are just real life things that Tyler and I have found that would have really helped had we known to talk about them beforehand. But sometimes you just don't know until you're in the thick of it with each other and have a conversation, or more than likely an argument about it. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is organizing your home. Oftentimes, you probably wouldn't answer this question through a book or in premarital counseling about how you guys plan to organize your home. And that may sound really trivial, and I guess it kind of is, but it is something that makes a difference for each person once you get into the day-to-day monotony of life. And so this can be anywhere from organizing your kitchen to organizing your bathroom, your bedroom, your living room, basically every part of your house. Yeah, so for us, for example, it makes a difference to a lot of people. Like maybe one partner is really specific about where they have to have the silverware.
Like me, I do most of the cooking, so there's a certain place that I would like the cooking utensils to be on the counter to make it easier for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so I had a lot of the utensils that he would use regularly put in a drawer that's not within reach of where he would be standing at the stove. And so after living in our apartment for a few months, he was like, I need to move some of this stuff so that it's within reach because I'm the one cooking every day. So we ended up having to reorganize. And these aren't really things that have caused arguments necessarily, but it is something that would be nice to talk about beforehand because they could possibly cause some arguments.
Or they could be the argument that breaks the camel's back.
Right, yeah, the straw that breaks the camel's back.
There's other underlying things that have been going on, and then you have this little thing that could have been resolved with just some discussion beforehand, but it ends up causing a big mess because there's other issues there.
Yeah.
For me, I like the fridge to have certain things in it and certain things not be in it. Some people, for some reason, like to keep A1 sauce in the fridge and peanut butter in the fridge, and even their loaves of bread they like to keep in the fridge. And hey, if that's you, that's fine. That's your own thing. But for me, I don't like it that way. So I don't remember if we had any problems with that, but I do go to some other people's houses sometimes, and I see the way their fridge is, and I'm like, I don't know if I would do that.
Again, these
and
are
I know
really
it would
trivial
annoy
things.
me.
Yeah, it's trivial, but it is something that it's as simple as when people have to have the toilet paper. It's the same thing as if when people have to have the toilet paper over or under or whatever. People have particularities like that, which we'll talk about later. But it's the same thing with the way you organize.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it affects somebody who food is important to, and the consistency of their food is important to, like Tyler. The next thing is decorating your home. So how do you guys plan to decorate? What are your styles like? Does one person have a more modern style? Is somebody more farmhouse? Is somebody more bohemian?
Does somebody like an ambiance where there's really bright lights, or more of a darker...
Dark colors,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
or maybe one person likes candles and perfumes and air fresheners all throughout the house. Or maybe the other person doesn't. Or maybe they just like it very subtle.
Maybe your partner does not care at all. Maybe it's not something that you even need to discuss because they're like, do whatever you want. But Tyler wanted a say in the decorations when we first got married.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually allowed me to do it however I wanted to. But in the beginning, we actually did have a conversation about it. And it was not really an argument, but it was kind of a like, this is really important to me as the wife to make a home for you. And I really want that freedom to do that. And so we had to talk about it. This was shortly after we got married, I think. But we both have, I think, a similar taste. Tyler probably has better taste than I do. Our taste is also evolving, and it's kind of evolving together. But it's something that you don't think to really talk about beforehand, but could be like something important to talk about. Maybe not even important, but something that's helpful to talk about. Like, hey, what is your style like? Okay, this is my style. How do we either merge these, or maybe if it's a similar style, what's your dream, how would you like me to decorate this? Or did you want to do this together? Does it matter if I do it on my own, or do you want to do this together? So that's just a helpful conversation. But also, there's like subcategories of that as well. Like Tyler said, going down to the details of like candles. How does your partner feel about candles? Like, or air fresheners, or diffusers. Like, does it bother them to have smell as part of your ambiance in your house? Does it bother them to have fire around? Maybe they feel unsafe if there's an open fire. Maybe they don't like the smell of air fresheners. Maybe they don't believe in essential oils. Whatever the case, it's something worth talking about beforehand, because you don't want to get married. I mean, again, trivial, but you don't want to get married and then there's these little like fights over nothing, or wasting time on conversations that could have been had earlier instead of it being a thing, so.
Yeah.
The next one is kind of
a big deal.
A big deal, yeah. So this one I would not categorize as trivial. I would say this is probably one of the more important things, and it may be something that you do talk about as part of your premarital counseling or through some kind of premarital book. But socializing, how do you guys plan to socialize, or what are your thoughts as individuals on socializing? And I say this in the context of people coming over to your house, or you going out with other people or going to other people's houses. And it is really important. And it's important to understand that your social life will change. And it might change in little ways, or it might change in major ways, but it's always going to be changing. Like even in your marriage, it might be one way for the first few years and then totally switch. And especially once you have kids, it's definitely going to change. So, but Tyler and I, he's more of an introvert, and he likes to enjoy spending time. Like for him, on his time off, it's relaxing for him to be home in a quiet place, just hanging out with his family, playing games, watching movies.
Home is my sanctuary.
Yeah, it's his sanctuary.
It's not my place to socialize.
For me, and I'll say this before I had my son, because now I'm more of a homebody, but before I had my son, I was definitely Miss Social Butterfly, always have been my whole life, love people. And so for me, it was like, are you crazy? What other purpose do you have a home for if you're not going to have people in it? So for me, it was like I was always inviting, when we were first married, always inviting people over, just like I had done when I was single. And I think even when I was single and I was living with roommates, it was a problem. And my roommates were super social, but it was a problem that like I would invite people over and I wouldn't ask them or tell them or anything like that. And so we did have to have that conversation even as roommates. So even more so with your spouse, it's really important to talk about that. How do you feel about our social life? Is it okay if we have people over? How often do you feel comfortable having people over? Is it okay if we go to other people's houses and go out to dinner with people or do activities with other people? How often do you want to do stuff like that? Because it is an investment of your time and your life and everything. And your energy, yeah. And so for Tyler, for example, being an introvert, it's exhausting for him to work the whole day and then he going out. Like for me, I'm like, let's go out with friends. Everyone's going bowling, He's like, I just worked the whole day. Because for him, as an introvert, it's draining to be around a lot of people. And it's not to say that he doesn't enjoy, like, those people or enjoy his time with them. He loves being around his friends and, like, other people and everything.
I love small groups of people.
But but it does take energy from him. It doesn't energize him. And so, as opposed to an extrovert who would get energized by being with a group of people. So that's definitely a conversation that is necessary. And
because there was a few times when we first got married where I would come home from work and you would have somebody over and I didn't know about it beforehand. I would just walk in the door and then all of a sudden, you're hanging out with somebody. Oh, okay. And so we had to have a conversation about that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And especially when you're living, like, when you first get married.
I remember I told you, like, I don't care if you have people over. I just need to know beforehand what I'm walking into when I get home.
Right.
You know?
It's especially important when you first get married because, number one, you're just building this new level of relationship with your spouse because you've never been on this level before, likely. But also, it's really important because a lot of times when you're first married, you start off in an apartment. Not everybody. Some people have the blessing of being able to buy a home and having a little bit extra space. But a lot of times you're starting out in an apartment and that is a smaller space. And so to share that with somebody else, like from the outside, can be a big deal for your partner if they're not somebody who, is energized by that or enjoys that extra company. So... The next thing that is important to talk about is chores. And I know that chores is something that's addressed in a lot of premarital books that have like the questions and stuff, but usually it's in the context of what are your expectations for chores and like
who's gonna do
who's
what?
Gonna do it. Yeah, like, okay, he's gonna take out the garbage and I'm gonna do the laundry or the dishes or whatever. But we actually want to bring an additional piece to that, and that is, how do you guys do your chores, or how do you plan to do your chores? And I say this, for example, we don't really have a set of like, this person does this chore. It's just kind of,
this is what ends up happening.
Yeah, this is just it. Whatever ends up happening happens, and it's kind of like, if you can get to it, you can get to it. But there's kind of also this like mutual respect of like, Tyler cooks, and so I feel the need to be the one to clean because he's done his part. And so out of respect for him, I want to clean and have like the clean house when he gets home or at night or whatever for when he wakes up in the morning. So anyway, that's kind of our dynamic. But in terms of chores, this is more in respect to like how you do them. So for example, let's say we did have assigned chores and it was Tyler's assigned chore to take out the garbage, which it's not his assigned chore, but he does take out the garbage almost every time. And
only because we've always lived in an apartment where you have to walk it to a dumpster. That's, if you wanted, I don't want to make you do that,
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, I'll be with the baby or whatever, too. Like, before you were working a similar schedule as us, I was alone at night with the baby, so it's like, not that I could have gone out with him.
Right.
But anyway, we digress. Our point in bringing up this, so let's say Tyler was the one to have the assigned chore of the garbage. When the garbage is full and I empty the garbage can and put a new bag in it, I set the garbage bag aside. And the way our dynamic is right now, it's just kind of whoever gets to it first. And like I said, usually it's Tyler. But both of us, neither of us mind the garbage bag sitting where we have, like, we kind of have this designated spot where the bag goes that needs to go out. But it might sit there. Sometimes it sits there for days because we just haven't got to it.
Like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Not like, oh,
yeah, it's not like it's a couple hours, though. Like, some people might be really, and that's my point bringing this up. Like, you and I are okay with that. But these are the things that need to be discussed because some people listening are cringing because they're like, you have a dirty garbage bag full of nasty garbage sitting in your kitchen for days. Like, some people have to take it out immediately. Yeah. Some people are like, this needs to go out by the end of the night.
It depends on the kind of garbage bag you have, too. Like, these ones we're using now are really super thick, and they haven't really been a problem with the smell.
Yeah, the smell, and they don't leak or anything. Like, they're really heavy duty. But yeah, like, that's something to talk about, because what if you and your partner are like, okay, great, he's going to be the one to take out the garbage. But he's like, well, I'm going to take out the garbage when I'm ready to, which is a lot of men. And it's like very strategic. He's like, well, I'm going to be going out tomorrow morning anyway, so I'm just going to wait till then. Well, what if the wife is like, oh, I don't think so. Like, that thing needs to get out of my kitchen right now. So that's something to talk about. Another thing is, like, how do you guys do laundry? Did you grow up in a house where you just everything goes into one load together, or did you grow up in a house where you separate all by the colors, the lights, brights, darks, whites, everything, towels go in a separate thing? Like,
or is it just the whites and the colors?
It's not, though, because there's different shades of colors. There's a blush pink,
there's towels,
and there's a navy
whites,
blue,
and colors.
It really matters. It really matters if the navy blue gets washed with the blush pink, because it will no longer be blush pink. It will be this ugly, dark lavender grayish color, and it's not it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, another thing is how you cook your food. Like,
oh gosh.
For instance, I never have used foil on my cooking sheets when cooking. It's just not something we did in my house, but you always do that, and I actually like doing that now, because it actually makes cleaning a lot easier.
Yeah, and it makes your cookware last longer.
Yeah,
because you don't have burn marks, you don't have any of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
My mom always had something down. Like, even she taught me with baking too. You put the parchment paper down, which I didn't pick up until we were there in 2018 visiting her. But yeah, so
it's not bad to
excuse me,
not use foil, but it
no,
definitely is helpful.
We're not saying that because we do something one way is the way that everybody listening needs to do it. We're saying that's the whole reason that you need to have this conversation, because what if your partner has a similar mindset as us and you are like, nah, we're not going to do it that way. It matters. And like, it seems so trivial that you would never talk about it beforehand, but these are the things that you talk about after you get married. Like, it is important, obviously, to talk about, like, do you want kids? How many kids do you want? Those kind of, like, really important things. But these are also...
sex and finances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are also important just because this is literally what happens in your normal day every single day. So,
yeah. Which is the majority of your life. Right.
Majority of your life sits in the things we're talking about today. So the next thing we're going to talk about is particularities. And these would be the things like, you don't like wearing shoes in the house. You don't like leaving cups out so that you can reuse them. You don't like having mail sitting on the counter. You don't like, whatever it is for you, you have something or some things that you're just like, we're not going to do that. I can't do that. And I say this because those little things, like we just said, this is your everyday life, and these will be the things that build up, and you would be surprised at how it can build up tension in your house in between you and your spouse. And so, for example...
or how they can add to the tension that's there from something else. Right,
yeah. You might have something going on in your relationship, and then all of a sudden you see that cup on the counter again, and you're like, son of a gun, I'm gonna throw this cup right on the ground by his feet.
So with the cups, I like to reuse my cup, and instead of going through a bunch of cups all day long, especially now while we're in quarantine and we're here all day long, I'm obviously going to be drinking a lot, so I'm not going to use 5 cups all day. I want to just use the 1 cup. It's obviously not going to be super
dirty. It makes
dirty.
sense, guys. It's efficient. It makes sense. I get it.
And so I'm not going to put it in the sink after I'm done using it. I'm going to leave it out where I know where it is so that when I'm ready to get another drink of water or juice or whatever, it's there and I can go ahead and grab it and use it. But Brittany, the cup bandit, loves to just take a cup.
My best friend
if it's
is
empty,
the same way, though.
Or even if it's not empty, if it's mostly empty, she will take it to the sink, dump it out, and put it in the dishwasher.
No, it has to have like a teeny little bit. Listen, I think the part that bothers me is that it's empty. Like if you finish your glass and poured a little bit more into it, I'm like, okay, cool, he's still using this. But if it's empty, I feel like, what, are you leaving your cup on the counter for me to clean up? Like...
So eventually, I finally made a rule this week, actually, where if the cup is in the sink, I am done with it. If it's not in the sink, I'm not done with it. And now we actually, after 4 years, have an understanding.
Yeah, well, let me correct him when he says rule. We came to an agreement, because you don't give me rules. We came to an agreement that you will put the cup in the sink when you're done with it. However,
yes,
our agreement was it needs to be on the counter in a certain place, right? That was our agreement.
That was never part of the discussion.
That was our agreement. So we just had an argument.
This is why you need to have these conversations, people.
About his freaking cup. I can't with you. Oh my gosh. And we came to an agreement that if it's on the counter or the table, then I will leave it. If it's anywhere else, I'm putting it in the sink or in the dishwasher. Anyway, that's a particularity of his. He likes to leave his cup out. I don't like to have it out. Mail is another thing. Like, I don't like to have things out, just laying out. Like, he'll bring the mail in and he will just leave it. Like, he'll read through it and just leave it on the table. And if I didn't move it, it would stay there for who knows how long. It would just start piling up and he'd probably just have a pile of mail on the table.
That's a problem of organization because we don't have a place to put our mail.
We do. We actually have multiple places to put our mail.
But we have places to put our mail, but we don't have places to organize our mail. This needs to be filed, this needs to be dealt with.
Okay, I will buy us something that allows us to do that. But there are multiple places that we have that we put mail. There's literally 2 drawers.
Yeah, I know
there's
that.
There's this thing and there's your bucket. So,
but that doesn't help when there's that especially does not help when there's many places that we can put our mail, but there's a lot of different things that you need to do with your mail. So,
but there's a lot of times that it's just junk and it's just sitting on the table.
But if you have to go to 5 different places to find a piece of paper that you have to deal with,
this is a conversation again.
Then
anyway,
it's a problem.
Okay.
It's not helpful.
My point is to say I don't like it, so I move it, but then Tyler gets upset because I move it. And so it's an issue. It becomes an issue because just like the cup situation, he left something out and I didn't like that he was leaving a mess in places. So I cleaned up the mess and I put the mail in one pile on our dresser where he can go through it. And now he has a bucket. And he doesn't like that because he's like, where's the mail that I left out? And I'm like, well, there's a bunch of junk with it, so I didn't know there was anything important in there that you needed to keep. So it's been this conversation, and obviously it's still a point of tension for both of us. So I highly recommend talking about your particularities. Another one that is not related to Tyler and I, so hopefully we will not get into another argument about this. But we have some of our close friends, they do not allow shoes in the house, which is a rule that we respect, and we don't typically wear shoes in our house unless we're about ready to leave. But they're more strict about it, like you just don't wear shoes in the house. And that's totally fine. But the husband's family didn't have that rule growing up. And so I'm assuming, I mean, we don't know any details, but like we imagine that would have had to been a conversation that they would have had to have when they first moved in together, because I'm sure the husband was probably walking around with his shoes on and the wife was like, hey, we're not going to do that in this house. And so that's another thing. But there's particularities like that where it comes down to like, you know, what's important to you, different things that are important to you to stay sane in your own home.
Another big thing is music or background noise.
This is huge, guys.
This is huge because I do not like noise, and I grew up in a really big family. I'm one of 7 kids, so it was always loud in my house. So I like coming home and it just being quiet and not having anything on in the background. I don't know.
And that's really weird to me.
And that's completely opposite to Brittany.
I grew up in a house where there was always music playing or something on in the background, like the TV. Usually it was music, though. We had like a surround sound system indoors and outdoors. And I grew up just with a brother. And so for me, like when I get home, the first thing I do is turn on either music or the TV. And also another part of this is, again, Tyler is introverted, so he likes it quiet. He wants to feel like he's alone so that he can relax. I feel
like I'm alone.
But like for me, I will turn on the TV. Not necessarily to watch it, but number one, I want the background noise. But a lot of times, instead of just turning on music, there are a lot of times I will turn on the TV where I have like The Office playing, or I'll have a movie playing, because I want to hear other people's voices. I want to feel like there's other people around, because I enjoy other people's presence and it matters to me. And so it feels uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right to me to have the silence in our house. But again, that's totally opposite for us, and so we've had to compromise with each other. Usually Tyler has compromised and just allowed, like, a lot of times our compromise is like he'll allow music just very quiet, because I will have it as loud as I can have it, I guess, most of the time. I don't know, but like when I'm doing anything, cleaning, cooking, doing the dishes, whatever, I always have like YouTube videos playing or music.
I think Caleb's going to be more like me, because usually when I drive around with him, he requests the music to not be playing.
He asks me for Moana when we drive around. Maybe he's just like, oh, I know I'm in the car with Mommy, this is what I want to hear. Oh, I'm in the car with Daddy, we can just hang out.
We can just chill.
Yeah. So that's a really important thing, because it matters that, like Tyler said, this is our sanctuary, being home, and it matters for your comfort. And it, like, if I have music...
And your ability to relax. Yeah,
because if I have music going 24/7 and that's something that energizes me, like, that's great for me, but I'm likely depleting my husband of energy, and I'm likely causing him stress and adding to the tension in our home and therefore in our relationship. And so it is something that needs to be discussed, you know, if you have opposite personalities in that way or whatever. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is manners and sanitation. And so under this category, that would be like burping, farting, going to the bathroom with the door open, anything like that. Like when it comes to like manners, I guess. How do you feel about people putting their elbows on the table? Like, that's not a problem for us, but for some people it might be a big deal. I don't know.
Belching was a big thing for us.
So we went through it was like 103 questions to ask before getting married or something like that.
Engaged.
Before getting engaged. And so we went through this book and answered some of these questions together. And one of the questions was about like how you're going to raise your children. And in Tyler's family, they grew up just belching out loud.
And being proud of it.
And being very proud of it. And
having belching contests.
And Tyler, therefore, did not only belch in his home, but he belches wherever he is. Like, just
not wherever.
It will be.
I have restraint. Okay.
Well, I would have a party at my house, and Tyler would just belch out loud.
It's a party. Okay. It's a party.
That's very weird to me. So we were going through this book.
If it was a classy party, then maybe I would restrain myself.
Okay, which party did I throw that wasn't classy? Anyway, so Yeah, so we were going through this book, and I was like, I don't want to raise our kids to burp out loud. I think that's really rude and like offensive, and I don't want them to do that. And he was like, well, I do want them to. And I thought he was joking, and he wasn't. So we...
That was our first fight ever.
Were we even engaged at the time?
No, not yet.
We weren't engaged yet, and we had the biggest fight we had ever had up until that point.
About belching.
About belching. That was the first big fight we've ever had, and it was ridiculous, and it didn't really ever get resolved.
Because I think you thought I was just being funny and was just trying to get under your skin, but I really cared about it because it was it was a fun part of my childhood growing up, like having belching contests with my brothers and I don't know, it was just a funny thing, you know, and being able to have that laughter in your home, and it's just you're at home with your family, you know, it's not like you're having these formal dinners with other families and doing that.
But again, what bothers me about it is you create this habit and this like freedom to do that in your home, and then you go to other people's homes and you forget you're in somebody else's home because you're comfortable and it's your best friend, and you start doing it in their home, and you start doing it at parties around a bunch of people you don't know because you totally lose sight of the fact that it's not a normal thing, and it's very rude and gross. So
well,
anyway,
that's when you have to be a good parent and bring your child up to know the right situations.
So you're saying your parents weren't good parents? They didn't teach you right to do that?
No, I think they did a great job at that.
Then why were you belching at parties?
Because I was a grown adult at a fun party. That's what you do at a fun party.
First I'm not classy, now it's a fun party. You're literally the worst. Anyway, so that was a huge issue and something we did need to talk about. Again, seems trivial, but was actually a really huge source of contention for us. So there's that kind of stuff, like disgusting habits that you guys should talk about. Like, hey, I actually do this. Is that going to bother you? The other thing is sanitation. Do you, like, washing of hands? Do you wear socks inside the house or not? Do you
open the bathroom door after you're done going to the bathroom
before you wash your hands
or after you wash your hands?
I do both, which is totally disgusting.
I didn't have any idea that there was a possibility of opening the door before you wash your hands until I was married to you for like 2 years, and I noticed you doing it. And I was like, that's kind of smart, because you've already opened the door, so you don't have to touch it after you've cleaned your hands.
I will say this, though. It sounds really disgusting, but when I go to the bathroom, and I wipe for all reasons, because no matter what I'm doing on the toilet, I have to wipe. But I only use one hand. Mm-hmm. I don't use the other hand at all.
Yeah.
So it's literally just the way it was when I came in. That's the one that I used to open the door. But I mean, either way, it still grosses me out to think about that. But I do that, and for the same reason that you said, because I don't want to touch the door after I wash my hands. Or right now, a lot of times my son is trying to get out of the bathroom because he wants to go play. But yeah, is that like a thing? But like washing your hands when you get home from being out in the world, you're home from grocery shopping. Do you wash your hands?
I never did that till this coronavirus.
But yeah, things like that, like things to be discussed. What grosses you out? Does it gross you out when people have bare feet in your house? Does it gross you out when they wear their socks after wearing them all day inside their shoes? Like, not really things you would think to talk about, but things that could be a source of tension in your home after you get married. The very last thing we want to address is electronics, and it is a big deal because nowadays most of us have cell phones, most of us have social media, most of us have a bazillion reasons to be on our phone, if not for TikTok alone. So, that being said, talk about, and I'm sure this is probably in the newer books, and you'll probably talk about it in premarital counseling in some form or fashion, but if it's not, this is something that should be talked about. What is your feeling about electronics? What is your feeling about your cell phone? What is your feeling about iPad, computer, TV time, listening to music time, like whatever it is for you, whatever electronics you have? how do you feel about that? And do you feel like there should be a designated time for that? Like, I know there are a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I don't know how many people, but there are some people who designate a time for electronics. And not just like when we were growing up where your parents were like, okay, you can have an hour with the Nintendo or whatever, but like they say, okay, my phone goes to bed, quote unquote, at 8 p.m. Like, that's it for the night. And then however late I'm up after that, maybe you're up for another 2 hours, like you're phoneless after that. And that's just your time to read, or if you wanted to do TV or play a game or do whatever. And so they quote unquote put their phone to bed. That has a bedtime every night. A lot of people I know
it's not going to put up a fight.
Yeah, not like our son. A lot of people keep their phone in a separate room when they sleep so that it's not the first thing they like grab when they wake up in the morning. They just end up buying an old-fashioned alarm clock to wake them up, and they keep their phone in another room, which actually health professionals would tell you is the most beneficial for you, not to have your electronics in your room. And it's not just for like the face to screen time, but also like your electronics send out like waves in your room, and it does affect your, I think it's your frontal lobe, I'm not sure, anyway. But yeah, that's the thing. So what are your rules, or what are your thoughts about electronics? Do you not want to have any electronics in bed? They can be in the room, but you don't touch them while you both are laying in bed. We choose not to have a TV in our bedroom. As one of my good friends would say, the bedroom is for sleep and sex. Right now it's also for work. I'll go
get him. He can say hi to the people.
Oh, all the people. All the 3 people that are listening to this right now. We appreciate you 3. Cheeky! What are you doing? Did you have a good nap?
Yeah. Can you say hi, people?
Hi, baby.
Tell everybody how old you are now.
2.
You're a big boy, huh? You're such a big boy.
And there's a cake?
Yeah. Dinosaur cake, yeah.
You had a dinosaur cake for your birthday? Hey, can you tell me, did you have sweet dreams?
Yeah.
You did? Did Lammy have sweet dreams?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Love you, bud.
Okay, patooted. Oh, I love you. Okay. So to wrap things up, with the electronics, yeah, just some of the discussion about, and also like, how do you feel about cameras in your house? How do you feel about your spouse taking pictures and video and posting it on social media and that kind of thing?
That's a big thing, yeah.
Like Tyler, we didn't realize this until like, I don't know, a few years in, like it matters to him, and so I do need to ask his permission if he's in one of the video clips.
Which you haven't been doing lately.
Yeah, so that might be a thing to discuss as well. How does the other person feel about anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty good. I think that was a pretty good episode. What do you think?
I think that pretty much sums it up. So I think that's going to wrap up this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we would love to hear if you think we missed anything, maybe some things that you and your partner have either argued about, or something that you've kind of had to overcome as a couple that you didn't really expect. And it doesn't have to be a trivial or lighthearted thing. It could be a sincere, deep, rooted issue. We'd like to hear all of the above. So you can find us on...
Maybe there's some things that we haven't come up with.
Yeah, maybe we haven't encountered. We haven't encountered some of the things that maybe you have.
We're going to come up with them soon.
Yeah, so we would love to hear your feedback. You guys can find us on all social media platforms at With You Podcast. We do have a YouTube channel, but it's not really searchable by our name yet. It's more searchable by videos. So the best place to find us is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'll see you guys there. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.